A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to HJN Super Foam Flying. And today, let's bring out the big guns, the literal big guns. And you know what? I've talked a bit about the boom dozer some time ago, so now it's time to get on to one of the smaller parts of the XL series. But still, compared to most blasters I own, like the Otter QS4 for example, this thing is ginormous. This is the XL big rig, and while obviously the size difference is just massive on this part at least, I guess just to perpetuate a little bit further, let's bring out another blaster. If I can get this thing to go on. There you go. How about the Rush 40? So yeah, once again, we have quite a big size difference here. So this in turn just gives us a good idea of exactly how big the size difference is between these blasters. Also, when comparing the darts, this is basically what we got here. A typical elite darts, in this case we have ourselves a super dart, well, one of a few different color schemes adjacent to that lineup, versus the XL darts. It's just ginormous. It's basically almost like an explosive round, if you will. It really does lead me to incline that these sort of blasters could in fact just be used as grenade launchers. And I don't know about you, but if that time were to ever come by, then it just seems that Aftersaught 2, as I've basically showcased most of these blasters on, and not to mention many others that I got here on Super Foam Flying, are pretty much not seen there, but as opposed to Aftersaught Part 2, this is pretty much one of the only other places that we can go to find these other blasters. But otherwise, it's basically a large slide on the top that can allow you to fire one dart at a time. So it's basically like the combination of a night finder where you can hold one dart in the chamber and another two inside little storage compartments, and then having a slide that's very adjacent to other blasters like the Recon or the Maverick. Pretty much just gives us a good basic idea of what we could expect to look for when it comes to potential reshells or cutout blasters of any sorts, despite the fact that these are newer lines. I'm not willing to go all too far on these things because, after all, Nerf is in fact a bit more than just something out there that's just existent when it comes to the world of flying foam darts out there. And toy replicas of different guns, pretty much. But yeah, I feel like that another thing here is that, similar to the action of a few blasters that I've talked about in many, many years, yeah, the slide recoils a bit for some odd reason. You'd see it again? Yeah, it jerks back and forth slightly upon a trigger being pulled, which I feel doesn't necessarily make all too much sense. But then again, when you got a blaster like this that has an amazing sort of detail, casting, molding, and all that, not to mention a pretty nice color scheme of vermilion red, bright white, black, and baby blue pretty much, I'd say this is a great color combo. And then of course, you have a single tactical rail on the bottom. I certainly am not at all a fan of tactical rails that are situated in some of the strangest, most unusual places of blasters. Like when I've talked about before how, well, here's the Corrector, for example, which is basically one of 8 original blasters from the Super line. But while it does have modular connectivity in many different ways, including tack rails, of course, here's a tack rail on the handguard, which is a pretty strange place. Down here, I feel like it's excusable alongside the fact that this also has a barrel adapter and a stock adapter, but otherwise, this is a pretty good blaster on its own. Doesn't always have to be fiddled around with in terms of modular connectivity and compatibility with most attachments. So otherwise, the Big Rig being one of a few early release blasters in the lineup known as the Mega XL series, which is supposed to be the successor to the Mega series, which is very much like how the Hyper or Keen series, as I'm always going to be calling it, because there already exists a Hyper Sight lineup, that is. This is supposed to be a successor to the rival line, so it does seem that 2021 was a huge turning point for Nerf, and how they all of a sudden decided to make a bit of a unanimous agreement to practically end all series that they originally had, and now they all of a sudden have brand new ones that are in fact growing to this day, but ultimately I don't see fit for all too much. But at least it's good to have at least a few changes in mind, to have new series, to have new marketing strategies, to have a lot of new things in general. Who even knows? We'll probably see much bigger things when the time comes by. Otherwise though, for being one of only 3 blasters that were released in the Mega XL series at the time in 2021, the Big Rig is probably an eh by all means. Being a night finder that can hold 3 darts at once, a large slide, and otherwise, well, I just don't necessarily see all too much about this one. But if you want to see more go down on my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.